In Anambra State, Professor Soludo, during the campaign era, did promise in the Anambra that within 6 months, he was going to conduct local government elections. Took oath of office March 27th, 2022. 2 years after, he's yet to keep that promise. Yesterday, the papers reported that he has sacked, well, people like to call them transition committee chairman. I like to call them what they are. He sacked, Professor Soludo sacked the 21 sole administrators in these local councils. I wasn't counting, but I was really shocked to hear, I wasn't counting, but I was really shocked to hear that he has actually, Professor Soludo has actually changed.
Yeah, but sometimes also.
About eight times. That this is going to make it the 8th time.
Yes.
Honestly, I've not even heard that in any other state. I'm not come together and say, no, wait a minute. We are not saying we love you or we hate you. We are not saying we are going to vote for Abga or against Abga. We are simply saying there should be democracy at the grassroots and mount pressure. And I am not sure.
Side by side with Lagos, why was it possible for LP to win Lagos State? I mean, in one of the elections, it's because the people, apart from wealth being there, you also have people who are sagacious, people who are knowledgeable about what governance should be. It's not billionaires being Anambra people coming first, second, or third in education. It's also about interest. These guys.
The only figure I can liken to him in Nigerian politics, from the little I know about Nigerian politics, is Aminu Kano.
Okay. What Peter Obi did, would be written and properly profiled, for people to really understand. Because what he did was unprecedented. If we really have to.
Okay, welcome back to News Review on TV Sapientia. Still Jude, Geoman, and of course my guest today on News Review is Mr. Chinedu Nwonu, Principal Partner, SF Metrics, and of course Public Policy and Economic Analyst. Welcome to the program this morning, sir.
Good morning, Jude. Good morning, viewers. Thanks for having me.
All right. The big one in the papers today, of course, so many things. But then let's begin with Anambra State. Anambra State is so much in the news and so much attention is being paid to Anambra State. Yes. Now, not to even make this an Anambra State thing, across Nigeria, there is rising concern about local government autonomy.
Correct.
And so many Nigerians, maybe not my generation, your generation, will remember that pre-independence, post-independence, we had a vibrant local
that's true.
government system where we even had local governments fund schools, establish schools, fund these schools, waterworks, roads, and all of these little things. Yes, healthcare. So we had that. Coming back to democracy in 1999, the story has been somewhat different, right? Last year, 2023, the leadership carried out a very wonderful survey, and they came up with disturbing figures. 313 of these local councils across Nigeria were run by caretaker committees.
Yes.
The others, of course, even though elected, there is so much question around the democracy, really, because the states, whatever parties at the state, sweeps everything. But be that as it may, in Anambra State, Professor Soludo, during the campaign era, did promise in the Anambra that within 6 months, he was going to conduct local government elections. Took oath of office March 27th, 2022. 2 years after, he's yet to keep that promise. Yesterday, the papers reported that he has sacked, well, people like to call them transition committee chairman. I like to call them what they are. He sacked, Professor Soludo sacked the 21 sole administrators in these local councils.
Yes.
What do you make of what is going on?
Well, it's not just been about Soludo. We had that, during Governor Obi Alliances.
Yes.
And even Peter Obi, as it were, I think it was towards the end of his administration. That was when he now, tried to, come up with that election and all that. But throughout the 8 years of Governor Obi Alliances, we never had that. And then we've come to the point where we felt that the governor we have presently, is somebody who knows, somebody who understands, somebody who should be able to, keep to those promises. Because we tend to, you started well by, dimensioning what the local government did in the past. And we also understand that they are critical to democratic dispensation, as the third tier. And, that closer to the grassroots. You understand? They understand the needs of the people, and, so constitutionally they have that mandate to be able to reach out to people and do so many things. But sadly and unfortunately, we have not just in Anambra, like you said, throughout the federation, and it's become a very, very critical issue. Now, some people said he's sacked. That's what's all over the papers. But some of his in-house guys are saying it's not sacked. What they did was that, every 3 months they're supposed to renew their mandate. And some of us who are into HR, understand that sometimes the minimum you can give somebody to demonstrate competence in a post is about 6 months. So you now have people, and you're dealing with human beings, you're dealing with lives, you're dealing with economic issues, and so many critical parameters you can use to judge governance, and you're giving people 3 months. Sometimes they get into the first month, their relatives, uncles, relations and friends and all that are coming to thank God for his appointment and all that. Then the second month he's trying to understand governance, what do they require of me. Then the third month you're telling him to hand over to head of administration and all that. So virtually nothing happens. So you now find out that it begins to look like these guys use these positions to compensate cronies, friends, party supporters and all that, without really meaning to govern. And when you also begin to consider the fact that the Supreme Court has given judgments, several judgments, and so it becomes very clear that these people do not recognize the importance of the local government tier of the system, or they don't give them their due, and they don't really want unless for pecuniary benefits, because you can't reason it out, you can't dimension it. Why they shouldn't allow these guys to do what they are supposed to do, allow people to elect who they want within their locality, and give them power to be able to administer. They are part of the system. It's not as if you're doing anybody any favor. They are part of the democratic tier, if you dimension it. So it's a problem. It's a problem. So like I said, it's just for pecuniary gains. That's why you want, they're clinging onto the joint accounts that they have. And yes, constitutionally they're supposed to supervise, they're supposed to have oversight functions, but you don't now appropriate their funds and now begin to give handouts and they decide what you want to do with the money. So there are pecuniary gains, and that is not right for a democratic dispensation. He made that promise. So we expect that, being a prof, somebody who has a senator and who knows so much, he should be able to keep to that minimum promise. In the next 1 year or so, we start talking about elections in Anambra State, and that's 4 years gone, and he will come back to us and then beg for votes. So what they should do is to begin to put the processes and the procedures in place to be able to organize local government elections, instead of all these 3 months thing that they're doing, considering the court judgment and the outcry of people in the economy. So it's a challenge.
Honestly, I didn't get the memo of I've not heard anybody defend that with 3 months, because I don't know where such a law or rule was enacted.
Yes, that's true.
But honestly, I wasn't counting. I wasn't counting. But I was really shocked to hear. I wasn't counting, but I was really shocked to hear that he has actually, Professor Chukwuma Soludo has actually changed.
Yeah, but sometimes also.
About eight times. That this is going to make it the 8th time.
Yes.
Honestly, I've not even heard that in any other state. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I've not heard of any other state where what governors have always done is pretend these guys are actually local government chairman, and then wait for their tenure to elapse. I think it's a 2-year tenure.
Yes.
Wait for it to elapse, and then they say they reviewing it and all of those kind of things. I've never heard 3 months, so I wouldn't know where that wisdom comes from. We wait for them to explain to us where that wisdom comes from. But let's talk about something. I actually find this disturbing. On the one hand, you have governors.
Yes.
Professor Chukwuma Soludo of Anambra State being also one of those governors who clamor for restructuring, is the English word now we throw all about. But the whole idea is devolution of power. That's the whole idea. Devolving power. Yes. We have a top-heavy system. So on the one hand, while you see governors pushing for restructuring, then you see governors rejecting local government autonomy.
I totally agree.
Then when you twist it to the federal level, while you see at the federal level anybody who sits on that chair, while you see them pushing for local government autonomy, you see them fighting back and not wanting that devolution of power to the states. This paints a mindset. The second mindset I also want to paint is on plenary on Wednesday, we saw the Nigerian senators push for local government autonomy, accusing governors of embezzling the money of this local government, Yemen, calling on Mr. President to push and ensure financial autonomy for this local governments, and in fact go ahead, the push for the president and the federal. When they say federal government, they actually mean the president, because I think they are part of the federal government. So when they say that, I think they mean the president. That he should deny funds any state that refuses to have these elections. He should withhold maybe yes
allocation.
Now, while you see all of that happen, I now look at the people who make up the National Assembly and the presidency today. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu himself, a former governor, we can't also remember him allowing the local governments to breathe. That is the English they now use. Shetima, vice president, I also don't remember him well with somebody, as being somebody who allowed local government to breathe. Is it the Senate President Akpabio or Jude Okalu, one of those who also argued? My memory does not serve me right of how he allowed the local government to breathe. Lalong of former governor of Plateau State. We can go on and mention all of these people. Now, the question here now is this. If we have all of these people, from the presidency to the state government, understanding the principle of allowing a constituent unit to thrive. So if you're a governor, you understand it, because the argument is always sound. You understand that. Those are the federal. Also, understand that argument to allow the last tier to... The question I want to ask is, let us push down to the people.
Yes.
Do you think from Anambra State to the 36 states of Nigeria, do you really see Nigerians being alive to mounting pressure on governors to allow the local government breathe? Do you feel Nigerians really are doing that?
No.
What then will be the cause?
It's nearly not possible, because they have weaponized hunger, and so long as people are poor, so long as people live on handouts, and there's beginning to be hopelessness in the economy. So you now find out that people begin to tend towards wherever they think something can come out from, and that envelopes their mind. That forbids them from thinking analytically, to be able to push, to be able to galvanize and advocate and say, this is what we want, this is what should happen, and all that. So and it's so easy for these people, because whether you like it or not, government is the biggest spender, whether at the federal or state level. Once they release funds, you see liquidity in the economy. And people understanding that tend towards, what are these people even fighting for? The governors say all kinds of things, maybe at the legislature or when they are not in government or whatever, but once they become governors, they begin to change. Because they... Sometimes, like I said, it's because of pecuniary benefits. I don't know the financial part, but what I do know is that they don't want divergent opinions. Like, if you conduct local government elections today, there's no guarantee that ABGA would win all the 21 local governments. You understand? So they now begin to dimension all this. They want to be in control. They want to be in charge. They don't want to let go. They don't want somebody questioning, the funding or the expenditure pattern in the state. And like somebody has called on Soludo, as I think from the guy from I forget now, who picked up on this local government, and he's screaming and shouting. I said, why do we have to continue doing this? Why these 3 months?
Is it a rep?
A rep? No, it's not a rep. I think it's in the House of Assembly, State House.
Okay.
I think it's in the State House. Because he said something. He said, why do we have to continue doing this? Conduct local government elections instead of all these transition committees of every 3 months. So it is a problem. They don't want to do this because of the things they get, and because they want. It's because of elections, so that they hold on to the local governments and be able to structure and be able to push these guys to deliver their local government areas. That's all. Because they are not sure that if they conduct elections, other parties won't win. And if other parties win, that begins to question, that begins to put some kind of challenges to the ability to win the state elections, when it comes up. So that's just, it's political.
The fear I have is this. I agree with you completely. But the fear I have is this. Look, there are some states when people say these things, I understand. I don't know why I don't agree with Anambra State. Anambra State should have one of the most
look, vibrant,
yes,
people,
yes. Why?
Thinkers,
yes.
and because they feed themselves.
They feed themselves. Anambra State does not only take pride in saying that, but it is true that Anambra State has the highest number of billionaires, not even millionaires, by square kilometer.
Yes.
Now, if you have a state like that, and here is because, look, we all understand the interest of those in power, and it is human. It's not inhuman. It is human for me to want to use every means I have to keep my position. That's the human thing to do.
Correct.
But then the inhuman thing to do is to have an Anambra State where you have a lot of people who are satisfied and really are not even getting. They are not surviving on government contracts. They're not surviving. You have the highest number in Nigeria in Anambra State.
Yes.
When you also want to talk about education and enlightenment, because when you talk about democracy, the greatest ingredient that makes it drive is education, enlightenment, and exposure.
Correct.
Anambra State happens to be, I don't know if it has the most, but Anambra State has a sufficient number of children in the state and in the diaspora to be able to say, come together and say, no, wait a minute. We are not saying we love you or we hate you. We are not saying we are going to vote for ABGA or against ABGA. We are simply saying there should be democracy at the grassroots and mount pressure. And I am not sure any governor, including Chukwuma Soludo, can survive in office if he sees or would want to disagree with what he sees as popular push to do the right thing, not to do the wrong thing, to do the right thing. If he sees that every well-meaning Onya Anambra is singing the same song, why do you think it is happening in Anambra State that a governor, like you said, for 10 years we've not had this? Then it simply means the people are docile and allowing it to happen. Why Anambra State is what I don't get.
Now, there's a difference between billionaires in Anambra and billionaires from Anambra. Sometimes when some of these guys want to talk to Anambrarians, those who are supposed to be knowledgeable, those who are billionaires, those who are, because sometimes you also need to know that some of these guys who are billionaires, independent of government, independent of government contracts, don't really have time for governance, and all they care about is their business. And so many of these guys are not in Anambra, which is why oftentimes when they want to plead for votes, plead for funds to be able to develop Anambra or do anything, they go to Abuja, they go to Lagos. They don't come to Onitsha. They don't come to, which is to tell you that majority of these billionaires we claim are not even in the States. Now, there's also a difference between being a billionaire and being interested in governance. Because now let's put it side by side with Lagos. Why was it possible for LP to win Lagos State? I mean, in one of the elections. It's because the people, apart from wealth being there, you also have people who are sagacious, people who are knowledgeable about what governance should be. These are people who are talking at people who understand their rights, people who, but we don't have that. It's not just about money. It's also about interest. It's also about passion. It's also about understanding the dynamics of governance. It's also understanding what democratic push is all about and begin to talk towards that. At best, what some of our people do is, you want to be this, whatever, they give this man 200 million, they give the other man 200 million and go and mind their business. And they don't say anything, they don't speak out, they don't care. So, like I said, it's not billionaires being Anambra people coming first, second or third in education. It's also about interest. These guys, some of them are not in Anambra. They don't step into Anambra. Maybe they step into Anambra just during Christmas or Easter, and that's all. But they are from Anambra, they are billionaires. So we need to dimension all that. Anambra people don't really come out, because all these things have to do with so much advocacy. They have to do with the push. They have to do with enlightenment. They have to do, let's see, a billionaire figure coming out to tell people these local government elections need to be organized. It's not right. What the government is doing is whatever. They don't say anything. They don't come out to say anything. All they begin to tell you is that, they care for their lives, they don't know what they will say, and this and that will happen or whatever. And even their own owner will go and begin to tell them that you are not the only billionaire we have in Anambra, just mind your business and all that. But it does not help sustainable democracy. It doesn't help, bringing the kind of people that should be able to cause changes and all that. It doesn't, because democracy ideally should not just be about one party state. There has to be opposition. There has to be challenges. There has to be people who are critiquing the things you are doing and coming out to better perspectives. And we also know we now begin to test what development is all about. But it's not happening. So it's not just about money and education. It's also about understanding what should be done and what should be said, and you begin to say it. So there's so many angles to it.
That's a nice one, and I also now think from what you've said that one of the greatest problem we have, especially in Anambra State, is for the quote in quote out the. Let me just use the word. I hate to use enlightened because it's an enlightened man will understand these basic differences. It's just for the average Onyanambra, not understanding how not holding local government elections is causing the level of insecurity.
Yes.
So many of these billionaires can't actually come back home because of the level of insecurity. It's just them not understanding how that happens. The link.
Yes.
It's not them also understanding the link, kidnapping people for ransom, being able to hold them in our communities because we don't have leadership at that level. And also the number of dependents they have. Brother, send me this, send me that, send me this, send me that, and all of those things that happen from their kit and kin. It's them maybe not understanding. And we are talking about Akoluna, for instance.
Correct.
That's why that's across Igbo land, that's the biggest talk. Especially when Igbos look at what this term and almost glaring to everybody to be an existential threat around Nigeria, even Igbos and your investments not being safe where it is, push him to come back home. How are we going to create that enviable homeland where business thrives?
Correct.
If we completely shut down government. So I think it's just some kind of enlightenment that makes them link the problem to what they are ignoring.
Yes.
Maybe if that begins to happen, maybe we'll see a change of. But then for now, Professor Chukwuma Soludo has succeeded in, and once again in under 3 months, sacking the, I like to call them what they really are, and that is sole administrators, because they are not transition. Transition is for a period.
Yes, a period of time for you to now transit into something better, but they're not transiting into anything.
Yeah. All right, so next thing before we go to the foreign scene is to look at the LUP man. Mr. Peter Obi really captivated Nigerians. I mean, it's undeniable. The only figure I can liken to him in Nigerian politics, from the little I know about Nigerian politics, is Aminu Kano.
Okay.
Aminu Kano. Okay. Aminu Kano. Why? Because I grew up in the north. Maybe, but beyond that, it is the fact that not being in government, controlling any lever of power, not being there, he was able to build a movement that even our father, what's his name now? Things fall apart.
Okay,
Chinua Achebe, in his book The Trouble with Nigeria, the last chapter, he actually said that wasn't part of the book, but he actually added this because Aminu Kano was just announced dead, and then he added the Aminu Kano example. He said something. He said Nigeria will never be the same because Aminu Kano lived here, and that shows how much faith he had in him. So the Talakawa movement is what the NNPP Kwankwaso is enjoying today. Correct. Right? He was able to mobilize the North to say the commoner to say no, we don't want this. No, we don't want this establishment. He was able to do that, but he was never really accepted by the mainstream politics of the day. No. The Azikiwes were, the Awolowos were. That's why I use Aminu Kano. Mobilize a movement, sustain that movement. That movement is still alive today. The semblance to that I saw was the obedience. That's why I'm using Aminu Kano.
Yes.
The obedience. We've never seen anything like this. My generation, I never knew it was possible for us to see a figure mobilize Nigerians to say, stand by me, no money.
Yes.
In fact, he made proud say, I don't give shishi and all of that. But cut long story short, the 2023 election came and went.
Correct.
I think it was last week he went to visit opposition figures, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, Saraki, and former governor of Jigawa State, Sule Lamido. And while on the one hand we see his base being energized, we see the PDP establishment somehow not talking, but we see some kind of, they are happy. We've seen Atiku Abubakar say the things he said. But then the presidency has also come to dismiss this. What do you make of, in the news today, we heard that his support groups are already, coming up to mobilize. What do you make of this new drive?
You lived in the north, and you came up with the angle of Aminu Kano.
Yeah.
And for some of us who live or who have lived in the south, we never felt the impact of Aminu Kano as much as you did.
He was a northern figure,
and we did not really recognize him. You understand?
Really?
And, yes, we did not. From the southern parts, we felt okay, a good man. People loved him and all that. What was the driving force behind that love? Poor people. He was helping poor people and all that. So that was that's all. So that's the angle. That's the way we saw it from. So we, historians, in the course of time, what Peter Obi did, would be written and properly profiled, for people to really understand. Because what he did was unprecedented. If we really have to, I'm sure even the opposition parties, if they want to be very honest, will acknowledge what somebody did within a very short period of time.
We've never
talked about money, but the structureless, there was no structure.
There was
and
no
he said the
structure.
people, so he was coming up with some kind of principles that nobody ever thought of. And he was saying the right things at the right time. And if we actually sit down to, count the votes for what they really were, I'm sure there would have been much more impact than what we saw.
True.
But that's by the way and all that. So, he was a full force. The Obedient movement was really within a short period. They galvanized. They moved so much. They did so. If not because of intimidations, harassment, and manipulations, and all the things they did, I'm not sure we will be where we are today. Some things would have changed. So now, what I make of this is that, based on things that's been happening in Nigeria, you begin to see a whole lot of, you have some level of fear over things based on historical antecedents. And otherwise, one would have said, this is a wonderful move. This is what we need at this point in time. There's so much hopelessness in the economy since these people came on board. I mean, the FX issues, the oil subsidy issues, the insecurity issues that's been underreported, so many issues. So, in fact, it was last week that I was thinking, because I was going to give a talk somewhere, and I was thinking of some positives about this administration I can use to embellish so many negatives, and I could not find them. I couldn't think of any. I tried so hard. I would have loved to say that they handled the FX movements very well, but before one could even be ready to give the talk, the thing was going back to what it was and all that. So it's the right thing. I just want to believe there's sincerity, there's honesty, there's transparency in all the meetings and discussions, so there wouldn't be a case where, because he also tried to meet some of these top guys, before the elections, why some were this, some we're also saying the other thing. So let it be very honest. Let there be, in fact, so many people believed, close to 99% of people believed that if there was a measure between LP and PDP, in the last elections, they would have won.
Even by INEC's results, they would
even by INEC's results, even with all the manipulations and intimidations, they won.
They would have won.
But it never took place, and I want to think that it's also right he begins to. But the man also put a caveat to that article. He said that if it's pushed to the southeast and Peter Obi, comes up, then he will support Peter Obi. So there are conditions already, and then we don't also know the conditions others will come up with. But it is the right move in the right direction, because we don't want to see, and it's also wrong for the party in power to begin to dismiss them. Why are you dismissing them? The only way to dismiss them is to begin to do the right things, perform well, begin to do things. That's what will dismiss opposition. Not, you're performing so abysmally and you're asking people that their meeting is irrelevant or not mattering. So let them meet. We want alternatives to what is happening in the Nigerian economy today. That is just the truth. We want alternatives. People are hopeless. The worst thing that can happen to any individual is once it gets to the point of hopelessness, that's a whole lot, because you can't think, you can't plan. When the FX is even moving up and down, it's not because it's moving up, it's because it's not. If it's steady, people can plan based on that. But if as you're planning on this, the thing is moving the other way, that is the worst thing that can happen to an economy. So bearing war, Nigeria is in dire straits. Nigeria is in critical problems now, that any kind of association or gathering or meeting or coming together that can deliver us from this situation is welcome at this point.
Well said. Just to say in 1 minute, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, I always have a problem when he throws that as a problem, because he's a very influential politician. He is one of the major shareholders, if I use it, that of the PDP. All he needs to do is want to support somebody, and it will be done.
I think so.
In the primaries, when he keeps coming up with this excuse that, well, I said if they zone it to the southeast, I won't contest. All he needed to do was to raise a finger and tell the delegates in the north, vote for the southeast. All he needed to do was do that. All he needs to do right now is to say, okay, I accept to this and this and this and this, and his boys in the PDP, and there are many of them, correct? Will do that. But like you said, he's giving those conditions. Let's just hope on the positives. All right. Finally, on our news review today is to look at the foreign scene. Very sad news coming up from Congo and
Democratic Republic of Congo.
Yes, and Iran. But just to begin with Congo. First of all, to talk about Congo, to talk about a country I love so much, and I have lived in all my life. I was born in, and so each time you want to talk about Congo, I remember my country because it's almost the same thing. Resource rich, resource rich, colonized, gained independence in 1960, and all of that. But once again, this is one country that has hundreds of armed groups fighting, but yesterday, very disturbing when the army said they had, foiled a coup attempt by some foreigners and, locals of Congo. Now, what do you make of what is really going on in that very troubled African country?
It's quite troubled. That's the key word. It's quite troubled. Because when you look at the history of Democratic Republic of Congo from the 60s, coming up shortly after, I think it's the first of the coup, coming up to the point of Kabila. In fact, up to the point of changing of name. They had Zaire at some point. They also, came up with a democratic, got back to Democratic Republic.
Our parents used to have Zaire music.
Very beautiful music. You understand? Very beautiful. So like you said, resource-rich, country that should be one of the, powers within Africa economically and all that. And because of political instability, because of coups, because of counter-coups and mistrust and so many things, I don't also know to what extent, foreign powers, like you rightly said, now the suspicion is not just about the Malanga man or so, but they are also feeling, but they're also feeling that some foreign hands in that queue. He has come up to say yes, that the president needs to go and all that, but it's all about the instability. We remember the Kabila period in the 90s and all the wars, then up to his son and so many things. True. It's been instability upon instability, and it's not just about Democratic Republic of Congo. It's also about governance in Africa as a whole, sub-Saharan Africa as a whole. Where till today, I don't even get to hear about queues in so many of these bigger countries, and but in Africa something needs to be done. Why do we have the United Nations? African Union. African Union. Sorry. Why do we have African? Why do we have ECOWAS? Why do we have all these regional blocks and bodies if we cannot begin to talk sense into some of these people, because the challenge is bad governance, corruption. That is what is fueling so many of these things that's happening. So when people see that you are not doing so much, but you're spending so much, you're giving people 90 billion to go and pray or to go for Hajj, when your healthcare is collapsing, your educational system is collapsed, and people are seeing this thing.
When you can't subsidize fuel, you're subsidizing Hajj.
And people are seeing these things. People are living in the economy and all that, and they begin to think. So the slightest suggestions for this and that to happen, people cling onto that and begin to do things. So it's been a very, very sad and unfortunate situation in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and only God knows how this will end, because once you begin to hear these cues and foiling and all that, you also have some splinter groups and some other people who some things are entering their heads that these people did not do this thing well. We may have to go and replan and re-strategize, and before long, wars start. They fought wars for so many years, not once, not twice, and
they've been in war since I was born. they've been in war before this coup. How many armed groups do we have? There was a record of 200. 5 armed groups in any country. It's not the size of Nigeria. In size, you might talk about size. In population, 100 and something million. But then let's talk about Congo with the lens of Africa. Look, what will it take? We've had great thinkers, Marcus Garvey.
Yes.
We've had Bob Marley. We've had great thinkers who really. We've had Malcolm X. Well, he's not in Africa, but
yes,
this African.
Yes.
Who talk about Africa and talk about African unity
yes.
and talk about African emancipation and talk about the knowledge base. Please, I want us to think what really is the problem with Africa. Now, you look at a country like DR Congo, and today the world is talking about electric cars. It's being said about 40% of the resources that's needed for that technology will come from Congo. You look at all these mobile phones, tech, electronics, and all of this. The resources used for this found in Congo. We're not even talking about oil. We're not even talking about oil and gold and silver and all of those things. We're talking about the new oil for all of these multinationals. Now, we have this in Congo, and then we have violence in Congo, and then we have electoral disturbances in Congo. In December, when the president Felix, when he was declared winner in that election, winning about 75, leading to that election, there was electoral violence, scores dead, and all of that. All of these things you talk about, you see the French there.
Yes.
Look, this is the sad reality of Africa. You have rich resources. You have poor people. You have foreigners in that country mining.
Yes, sir.
You have bad leaders. You have impoverished people. Look, what will it take? And just to say this, also across Africa, it is not even a conversation. Look, there is more conversation about the Russia-Ukrainian war in Africa, in Nigeria, in Anambra, than what is going on in Congo, than what is going on in Chad. Look, people have more Facebook friends in the UK, in France, than around Africa. We all do. I'm not saying it's some people. Look, what will it take? What kind of education? What will it take for us to have this? What all the Bob Marleys? What will it take to have a Bob Marley's Africa come to be? What will it take?
It will take sincerity. It will take contentment. People not being greedy. Because sometimes you begin to think that there's a kind of structure which some of these foreigners have put in place where the technological advancement is so much in their country. They need our raw materials like the gold, the diamonds, all the things they come here to mine, and they do whatever they can to ensure they perpetuate poverty within us, to block us from. Take for instance NNPC, all these are refineries. Why are they not working? Why won't they work? So you begin to think that, it's an unpopular opinion, but people feel that somehow these guys are funding some of these leaders to make it difficult or impossible for them to want to develop here, so that they can keep making us dry. Very unpopular. Nobody knows the truth. That's why sometimes when they come to us to negotiate, some people believe that we've sold our oil for the next 10 years, in terms of, debts, this and that.
But we've done. We've done. What is this? What is the oil swap? What's the oil swap? Our earnings in oil for I don't know how many years ahead is compromised. No, maybe we need to begin some programs about that, because honestly, people don't understand. They say this oil swap and it sounds like some free money you are giving, but what is it?
So it cuts. When you said, let's look at it from the lens of Africa. It cuts across. So many of the African countries where they give you this, they keep taking this, and for so many years to come, you are in perpetual poverty. You don't grow beyond whatever, because your wealth has been taken away by these guys based on the fact that they've given you fish, but they don't want to teach you how to fish. So that's partly what we see in most African countries, which is why some, West African nationals or countries are refusing the French, guys, cut off and let them focus on their governance in their country by themselves. So until our people begins to be contented, until greed disappears, until corruption, until you're patriotic to focus on what benefits your people, that's when we begin to think of the Africa of Bob Marley and Marcus Garvey and all those people we are singing about. But until the corruption, where you amass so much wealth, you get over there to dump the wealth over there, you're buying properties, you're, buying companies, you're investing in businesses abroad, to the detriment of your country. We would continue having all this kind of, challenges.
All right, in 3 minutes, let's go to Iran. Very unfortunate. The president of Iran and, his prime minister involved in an accident, Raisi, and he's been confirmed dead, What do you make of that announcement?
There are people are feeling whether it was a crash or if he was killed. It's already coming up.
And it will.
So it's quite a sad one. He died with his foreign minister and coming from an event, and quite unfortunate. It was difficult for them to assess, the scene, but eventually they did, and they confirmed him dead. And it's a sad one. It's a sad one. Plenty of permutations and simulations of what essentially happened. But in the next few days, we're going to have a clear picture of what.
Well, let me ask you, what do you think? Look, we can't. The conspiracy theory will move away from it. Because if one wants to even look at conspiracy theory, some people might say, is it coming from the supreme leader himself? Because he's tipped to be his successor, or is it coming from Israel? Where is it coming from? But then those are conspiracy theories. But to look at the hard facts is that Iran is not at the best of times today.
Correct.
You look at economy, you look at the economy, you look at the politics, you look at social unrest. Just yesterday there was a bloody anti-government protest that he quelled, he helped quell. But then in all, you can't talk about Iran without looking at global politics.
Yes, that's true.
In the region.
Very central.
After Hamas attack on Israel October 7th, Israel-Iran relationship has been, we've never seen it this bad. Now, what the nuclear deal, the nuclear controversial nuclear program, what do you make of all of these things Iran represents in the world today, post the president? Because he's gone now. What do you make of Iran's position in the world?
So much will depend on his successor. I don't know his worldview. I don't know his perspective.
He's a hardliner.
He's a hardliner. So
yeah, he's a hardliner.
I will just conclude. I will just say that it continues. The perception, the way, the challenges and issues, coming from Iran vis-a-vis the global economy and their politics will just continue. He's a hardliner. I've not read his background. I don't really know where he's coming from and his worldview. So that's just my challenge. But otherwise, I would just, because of, so many of these issues we talked about, where we perceive Iran to be and the things that's been happening around them, it will just continue.
All right, that's, quite sad note to end. But then we saw Iranians praying yesterday, but then it is what it is. Okay, news review definitely will be here, same time, same station tomorrow. Until then, I'm Jude, Geoman, and of course I thank Mr. Chinedu Nwonu for taking time out to come today, and we have a conversation around these major issues. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Jude, Geoman. Thank you, viewer, for watching.
All right, I'll see you again tomorrow.